Hey there guys, how's it going? Welcome to a video where I'm going to be discussing Call of Duty in terms of esports and its branding, what it needs to do to possibly become more popular. Is Call of Duty dying at the moment in terms of, is it a series or a franchise that's going to fizzle out? If not, what does it need to do to become more popular? And possibly some comparisons with CSGO at the moment, which is incredibly popular in terms of an esport, and should it mimic what they do or should it just do its own thing? To discuss with me today, I've got Petey. He's from PeteyIntel, and he currently is running his own YouTube channel where he discusses these kind of things. If you don't know who PeteyIntel were, they're a website, and they still are a website who cover Call of Duty news. All the latest stuff always breaks on their website, so you might want to check them out and check out Petey's YouTube as well if you'd like to listen to more discussions like this kind of thing. So how's it going, Pete? Welcome to the channel.
Not too bad, thank you very much. Great intro.
You are the perfect kind of person to discuss this with, really, and I want people in the comment section to tell me what they think about what we're going to be saying, because I think it's a topic that needs a lot of thoughts thrown into it. A lot of us love Call of Duty, but maybe we don't like the esports side, maybe people do like the esports side, and there's some real split kind of opinions on what's going on. So I want to kick off this conversation by just briefly talking about something that kind of fueled this discussion, and it's how well CSGO has been doing recently in terms of esports. I believe I watched a video actually of Hutch and Hex recently talking about this whole thing, and I wanted to throw some of my own opinions in, and we'll get some opinions from Pete as well, who's very knowledgeable in this area. So, as some of you most probably know, if not all of you, CSGO had a tournament recently. It had over 1 million concurrent viewers. That's a big deal. Esports is obviously growing, you know, exponentially at the moment. Very popular. And Call of Duty, which is obviously the main game I'm covering on my channel, is a game that's trying to get into that scene. And I just want to talk about, should it even be going into esports? Will that kill off COD? Maybe what Call of Duty should do to be as popular, and should it take actual ideas from other popular esports, or should it go its own way? So basically, just generally, CSGO is doing great at the moment. What do you think, Petey, in terms of, do you think that Call of Duty needs to take influence from other esports, or do you think there's other things it should do if it wants to grow? And even, should Call of Duty be an esport?
Okay, so on the topic of Call of Duty and esports in general, I don't think there's anything negative about Call of Duty going into esports itself. I know there's several factors that people have been stating as to why the Call of Duty growth in the esports scene hasn't been so great as of recently. So, although it's growing every year, I think it's growing in like the hundreds in terms of percentages, according to MLG.TV, who obviously gives out the viewer readings and so on.
Yep. It's
not really, the curve of growth isn't as strong as you were saying, you know, Counter-Strike, for example. CSGO.
I'm not sure if this is a fact, but I almost get a feeling like for Call of Duty, the viewership is growing on the esports tournaments because people are starting to really enjoy these tournaments. Are very well put on. There's lots of prize money, lots of tension, but not as many people are maybe playing Call of Duty. Whereas with CSGO, I tend to feel like a lot more people are playing and also watching esports. We know CSGO, I mean, I saw some graphs recently that showed its sales recently were just skyrocketing, and but Call of Duty, I feel like although esports might be getting more popular, that's not really a reflection on the franchise in general. Like in general, it does seem like the franchise is not quite at its height as it was back in, say, I don't know, Modern Warfare 2, maybe even Modern Warfare 3, Black Ops, maybe Ghost was a big part of that. Obviously, it was a game a lot of people were disappointed with and frustrated with, and they kind of left the franchise. But yeah, I do get this feeling that if it's going to be a popular esport, it really needs to focus on making it a very popular game. It's almost as if sometimes it feels like they don't mind it not being as popular in terms of franchise, as long as the esports side is growing. And is that a good direction for the franchise? Because I mean, I love Call of Duty, I love public playlists, but then I also love CSGO in terms of competitive game, and I can't decide in my mind if I would love Call of Duty to go full out competitive, only really play ranked playlists, bit like CSGO, or do I want that game that we all loved, you know, or is that just the nostalgia factor that we can have a popular FPS that is just literally for fun? Is that even possible, do you think, at the moment, or is it all about esports if you're an FPS game or any game?
I think there needs to be a place where a first-person shooter is created for the masses, and I think Call of Duty has been that, for the last how many ever years now. May not be the case on PC, but from a console perspective, it is literally the king of the FPS market. But that being said, in terms of you were talking about how it's less people are playing Call of Duty for less periods of time. Personally, I can even say that myself. I don't know about yourself. I actually play Call of Duty far less than I used to. So whether that's because I'm older now and I have a job and I have a full-time job and I just don't have time, or that's because I just haven't got the same interest that I used to have in the franchise.
Well, people's tastes change, to be fair. Like, if you've been with a series for like a few years, it's very natural for you to move on to a different type of game, you know, even a different franchise that's similar. So that's not really so worrying, I guess. But I guess you can still objectively look at it in terms of, in general, is the audience growing? You know, the next generation of players who are just picking up games. I mean, imagine you were, I don't know, 16 or around that age, and you hadn't really played FPSs properly, but now you've got a PS4 or a PC or something. What game would you be drawn to out of the ones around? Like, because a lot of people love FPS games, and they're gonna be thinking, which series looks like the best? And I think if you're like a new, I don't know, I'm not really sure. I mean, I guess we almost got spoiled a bit with like when the PS3 came out and the Xbox 360 came out. 360 is a very cool thing to be into that kind of gaming.
Say, actually, like Call of Duty is, to me, I think the people who actually start playing Call of Duty for the very first time are probably introduced to it in a word of mouth circumstance. But the funny thing is, Call of Duty isn't really seen as cool anymore. Like back in the COD 4 days, Modern Warfare 2 days, you were cool if you played Call of Duty. Now, not so much. And I think also in relation to the viewership of esports and people actually playing Call of Duty, I think you got a point. I actually think people are starting to play Call of Duty as a game less, but instead pay more attention to people who play Call of Duty on YouTube or stream it. It's as if it's becoming more of something that's fun to watch as opposed to fun to play.
And I guess that might eventually lead to the demise of the franchise. Or maybe it will need a big refresh. Like, we'll see. I mean, every year there's 3 studios now. Maybe one of them will pull something crazy out of the bag, but it's very hard to see. Like, if anything, Activision have proved that generally it tends to be more of the same with enough tweaks to keep us interested, which is what they're going for. You know, a lot of the time they're like, well, if we make it too different, it's not COD anymore, and if we make it too samey, then people complain it's not innovative enough. So,
I mean, how I see it is, I also think it's down to nostalgia and the fact that the game is released every single year. So if you compare it to GTA, for example, if you have an amazing time on GTA San Andreas, for example, there is such a gap between the next game that by the time you play the next game, it's an amazing experience.
It is a fresh experience.
It's a fresh experience, and it also lets you relive the fun you had on the original. Whereas at the moment, we're releasing a game every single year on the Call of Duty franchise. So let's say you really enjoy Call of Duty 4, and then the next game comes out. Or again, use the Advanced Warfare as an example. Advanced Warfare comes out, you hugely enjoy it, and next year the game isn't so good.
I think what they would need to give it that fresh feeling every time they release one is to make it vastly different every year. So imagine like a World War II was going to be the next Call of Duty, very unlikely, but if it was, that would be a big change and it would feel very fresh. Like, a lot of people out there right now are saying, I'd love a new World War II shooter, whereas obviously back in when World at War came out, everyone was like, oh, another World War II shooter, like, so fed up of them. But right now I think people are ready for that again. They would like eat it up. And so if you were to have that kind of diversity from that and then bam, back to an Advanced Warfare kind of setting, and it's like that might keep it a little bit fresh. But anyway, what I want to move into in this topic, obviously feel free to leave comments down below of what you think of what we've said, and we might discuss it next time, is I want to talk about what Call of Duty could or should do if it wants to flourish as an esport. What needs to happen? What are your initial thoughts?
It's a very broad question. Personally, I think that there needs to be more of a disparity between Call of Duty as an esports and as a game. I know that might come across as in the wrong manner, but for people who want to play the game, I feel as if we're being conditioned into an esports kind of scenario and setup. So essentially, they're pushing the primary and major player base, or the majority of the player base, into a scene which isn't necessarily growing as quick as it should be. So it's alienating a potential audience to esports, and also alienating the original players as well. So it's people are losing interest in the game because it's going so much into the esports kind of sector, whereas instead they could focus on the core Call of Duty experience, and at the same time, as a kind of like a side system or a side project, I guess that's the term you could use.
Work on the ranked and...
Yeah, exactly. Kind of like how Black Ops 2 did it, I guess.
I think all of the problems really get answered. I remember I was talking to you about this before, where if you just make the game fun, people will play it competitively. Like, and I don't know, there doesn't, because the way they're doing the main game at the moment is so many perks, so many attachments, so many little things going on that can upset the balance of the game. If you look at a game like Counter-Strike, although in Call of Duty people watch the tournaments, and some people were saying, even myself, I'm like, oh, I'm so bored of seeing the ASM 1, like it's just an ASM 1 fest. Whereas I'm watching Counter-Strike, and yeah, when the teams can afford them, they'll buy the AK all the time. But I'm not thinking, oh, I wish they used the X gun instead, because the AK is the right gun for that situation, so it makes sense to use that, and so you're on board with it. But I guess with Call of Duty, it's just there's no like forcing into different guns. The way Counter-Strike does it, that manages to keep it kind of interesting in competitive, so that it's not every round everyone has exactly the same setup like they do in COD. You know, basically everyone has pretty much the same creative class setup in every game. In Counter-Strike, obviously they have the money system, where you earn money by doing things in game, planting the bomb, getting the kill, winning the round, or even losing the round, which gets you less money. And then with that money, you have to buy the guns that you use in the next round. And so each round you have to buy your whole loadout, and then that can have a massive effect on the momentum of things, because if you've had a bad round, then in the next round you can't really afford the good guns, and then so you might have to buy the least powerful ones so that you can afford the good guns next time, because your money does add up. It will keep adding up as long as you don't spend it on things. So that is a way that there's like a big meta game in CSGO, while still having not a lot of different types of weapons, really. Like, there's not like too many. I mean, there's a burst weapon, and there's not a burst weapon, so there's like different types of guns with different fire rates and whatever, but it's not like in Call of Duty, where not only do you have that, but you have the attachments and the perks, which also throw all the balance of everything all over the place. So I don't know. It's because sometimes you think if they keep COD simple, then that will be more appealing. Because especially like Pro Mod, which is very popular in COD 4, do they do something like that, or do they full on bring in all the craziness of the public game, like in Black Ops 2, where they had kill streaks in competitive? I'll be honest, that was fun as hell to watch. Like when someone brought in like a Hellstorm missile during a capture the flag game, and they held on to it till the end, and then boom, they stopped the flag cap with that. That was good. I don't know. Do you think that Call of Duty needs more of a meta game to make it interesting to watch? Because at the moment, sometimes when you're watching even Hardpoint or Capture the Flag, it just seems like everyone's just running around with ASM 1s, and practically whoever slays the most wins. Like, obviously Search and Destroy is a way around that, which is a game that has a bit more tension, but is Call of Duty the kind of game where you just want to watch only Search and Destroy?
I get. Are you referring to more of, let's say, more of an objective behind a particular game mode, for example?
I don't know. I mean, all I'm really saying is that Counter-Strike has managed to find a way to have like a big meta to it, without having loads of different guns and things. Like, and I would like it if Call of Duty could find something that did that similar and competitive. I mean, I heard one suggestion that, say, for example, 4v4, each person has to choose a set class. So there has to be, say they play Capture Flag or whatever, there has to be one LMG guy, one shotgun guy, one submachine gun, one assault rifle, things like that. Like, maybe not
that's
that.
An awesome idea. I think from an esports perspective, actually, that's actually a very good idea. I never thought of that before myself. I think there's more of a team focus where each team has a responsibility. Kind of like if you compare it to Battlefield, for example, where you have obviously 4 classes with 4 different roles. That would actually be kind of cool. But like you're saying right now, it's when you're watching esports from a Call of Duty perspective, really,
yeah, everyone you watch is doing the same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
you're witnessing the same player do the same thing. It's as if you could just watch one player throughout the whole match.
Yeah, and they're all doing the same thing. Like, yeah, they might get the objective, or they might not get the objective, but they're all doing the same thing, and there's no real meta like to what they're doing, other than, I mean, obviously there's a lot of factors to take into it, but not compared to other esports which have a more complex meta. And I think that's what does them well as an esport. It's like you can play it, but there is also that extra meta game to it. Or whereas Call of Duty at the moment is looking very simple almost in comparison. And I mean, I don't think the main problem though with bringing something like that into it is that, say for instance, the Call of Duty teams that are around now are very used to doing what is around now. Like, say, Optic, all the players like that you run around like a crazy man with your ASM1. And then you say, okay, Optic Gaming, one of you has now got to be a shotgun, one of you has to be an LMG, and that might really tip the balance in terms of like who are the best players. Like, you're going to need more team focused players than just slaying people. And although there is still, like, you know, this is an OBJ guy, this is a slaying guy, it would be even more like that. And if all the players are like, we don't want this because it means we're going to have to change our whole style, we're going to have to change our whole squad, then, you know, would they do it if all of the community that are currently the pros were like, we don't want that? You know, like, what's more important, the potential viewership of mixing it up, or that you keep the guys who are currently COD pros and organisations happy and give them what they want?
Well, this is kind of why I think they need to make it separate. So, for example, right now, Advanced Warfare is conditioned more towards an esports game, right? So, when you're playing just standard game of team deathmatch, there's so many elements. Even skill-based matchmaking, in some respects, is kind of linked to esports. Like, I think there's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But either way, if you're playing it right now, it's more of a sweat fest. It's not so much, you know, sit down, have a casual play, try and do your best. It's more people.
You don't have to tell me, man. I've been playing it.
People are going all out. So if they retain the core experience that made Call of Duty fun, and no matter what they see, I think they've changed the core mechanics of how the game work. Obviously, because of movement, that's one of the key things. But that's not too much of the issue.
So you're thinking two very different games almost.
I guess, but not necessarily. I guess you could integrate them both, but you could have it so.
But this is the thing. It's like CS:GO has become really popular, and the games like League of Legends and so on, they don't release a new one every year. They make a basic outline of the game, and then they improve on it and tweak it continually, so the esport gets better and better, and it becomes more balanced and more interesting and more diverse. Whereas Call of Duty has to like reevaluate that whole thing every year, like, and that's quite a lot to ask. Well, in my opinion, what would be great to see, although again unlikely, because I think the whole reason they're doing the esports thing is to push sales of the game. So I don't think they would do this. But if they released a Call of Duty esports engine or frame, and then they released the Call of Duty for public, I don't know, maybe they could call one not Call of Duty, maybe they could call the public game, you know, I don't know,
well, I mean, this
Warfare
is
or something.
Put into the original game. I mean, Black Ops 2 did something kind of similar, not so much in the way I'm thinking right now, we're both thinking, but you have the core playlist, and then you have the esports playlist, which again they somewhat have right now as well, but the esports playlist plays in a very, very different manner and goes more in depth into what we've been talking about. For example, if we're watching esports right now, like we were saying, there's just too much of the same thing going on. Yeah. Whereas if you are a general player who you can jump into a standard lobby of just normal Call of Duty experience, but you could also go into the esports players, whereby you have to choose a role within your team.
Yeah.
Like,
but I guess the main difference between what I'm saying is that after the next year, people who play COD competitive will still be playing a game called, let's quote it, Call of Duty competitive, and people who want to buy the next Call of Duty are buying the next Call of Duty, whatever that is, Modern Warfare 4. I would like to see them, I don't think this will happen, this is just a suggestion, but I would like to see them come out of a game called Call of Duty competitive, and it has a really solid base, and it can be updated. It won't happen because of its console. They need to shift games on the console. And then they release a game every year, which is Black Ops 3 and Modern Warfare 4 with zombies and whatever. And, you know, something that everyone enjoys. And to be fair, also, the only real way they're going to do that is, if what we kind of haven't really touched on, but we wanted to try and discuss in the videos, getting on for time, is the fact if they made competitive focus PC-based, and then they could just update the game every year, like the PC competitive scene is, rather than release a game every year. And there plenty of ways to monetize it, like they do with these other games with skins and characters. You know, they love the game. People throw money into all kinds of crap if they love the game. So that's what I would like to see. Just very quickly, I go sum it up. Would you agree with that? Or if not, would you like it sound like you just like the idea of like a good ranked version in the game? Yeah,
I mean, your idea is perfect in the ideal world, but the reality of the situation is just
unrealistic, basically.
Yeah, unrealistic, and the sales will obviously be impacted. Basically.
But if they made a PC Call of Duty competitive, the problem with that though, if they're too far into console, if they made a game and called it Call of Duty competitive, released it on PC, it's a Counter-Strike competitor, for example. Imagine, like, you know, all of a sudden all the current Call of Duty franchises, the pro teams are screwed because they don't play PC, they play over console, so they've got to learn PC gaming. Like, what you'd get is you'd get all the CSGO pros, or some of them maybe moving over to that, and then they would dominate, and it would mean that all the people that are big stars now would no longer be big fish, and they'd, you know, and it'd be a whole new pool of people. I think that would be great for the game, but maybe it wouldn't, because maybe Call of Duty needs these personalities and teams now.
I mean, Call of Duty has the framework there, like you were saying. If they had a similar game on PC which people could convert over to, it would probably be a success. But the problem is they abandon the PC platform in general. From a development point of view, only the consoles are focused on. It doesn't matter how much money Activision and Xbox throw at the consoles and esports in general. I mean, the PC is the serious esports market. It always will be, for at least the time being anyway. Simply because the player numbers there, the viewer numbers are there. That's just it. You know, the console is not really a serious esports platform at the moment, and I cannot see it happening in this generation either. As much as Call of Duty tries to get that to happen.
Isn't really Call of Duty the only game that has like a console competitive version that is actually, you know, a big thing?
Exactly. I mean, there's been other games that have been talking about it. When Titanfall
like FIFA, for example, is console, but it's not really a big scene.
Titanfall came to the scene, and they were, I know Respawn were kind of interested in the idea of injecting esports elements into their game, but it just didn't happen. Whether or not that's because they just didn't bother, or it just, there was no interest. I think it was more of the interest point of view. It just wasn't really, it wasn't necessarily an esports game either way. But there's just, I don't think there's the right, how's the word? I don't think there's the right viewership in the console scene for esports to necessarily kick off in the same kind of league as CSGO personally. Okay, right. Well, this video, we'll sum this one up. It's gone on for longer than we had hoped, but I think we made, I think it was worth it. We discussed some interesting things. We didn't waffle on about anything. We just talked about all the interesting points. Don't forget, guys, check out Pete's channel if you want to see any of these kinds of discussions that he's going to be having. He has them with other YouTubers as well, so check that out, as well as all the latest news on Call of Duty release and stuff. Don't forget to maybe smash the like button on this one. Maybe tweet this at Activision Call of Duty. Maybe they will hire me for like an ideas guy for Call of Duty, and then all these things I've said might just happen. Stranger things have happened. Who knows? Dr. Disrespect ended up being a Call of Duty community manager, so you never know what could happen in this world. But thanks for watching, everyone. I really appreciate if you've got to the end of the video. It really means a lot to me, people that really do watch all the way through and appreciate the content. What we're going to need to think of, Pete, is like a secret code word that people can put into the comment, which shows me when they comment that they've watched till the end. Is there any word you can think that isn't like really too obvious that they could put in a comment? Because last time I said, I think, the word unrealistic, and they had to put the word unrealistic in their comment but not make it really obvious, so, you know, so that I know they've watched. So the only thing that comes to mind right now, I'm sitting next to a cannon box, so how about cannon? Cannon, alright. That's not an everyday word though, it's going to be obvious. I think let's go with something simple. Just use the word competitive in your comment, and some people might do that by a chance and they might do it, but as long as you definitely use the word competitive, I'll know you've watched to the end and you guys are the viewers who are really top tier. So thanks again to Pete. His link is in the description, and hopefully I'll have some more of these kind of videos for you guys soon if you enjoy it, and see you next time.